Hello, and welcome to Read and React, presented by Fable Table. I am your host, Nick Bowen, and joining me is my lovely co-host, Shannon.
Bonjour. Hello.
Excellent. We are continuing our read of Dungeon Crawler Carl today. Today we're reading chapters 14 through 18. A whopping 5 chapters today. As always, a warning for spoilers of these chapters and previous chapters. I haven't read ahead of them, so no spoilers coming from me. But sometimes Shannon gives a little hint that things are coming. So be a little.
Come up with like a secret passphrase between the two of us, like where when you ask a question about something that when you're like, why do they do this thing? And like, I might have the answer. Like, do you want to come up with like, if I start shouting like potato, like you'll know that it's.
I would just say, let's just wait until it comes up to answer that question.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Content warning for gore, violence, drug, and alcohol use. And now we'll jump right in. I've decided I'm gonna just put just a very brief, like 1 paragraph summary at the head rather than at the start of each chapter. We'll try it out. We'll see how it goes. So here's
a very good summary.
Yeah, let's do a 5 chapter summary. So Donut, Tally, and Carl watch the show Dungeon Crawler World Earth, the premiere, learning how cruel the editing team of that show is in their depiction of humans and of Earth, as well as how cruel they are not depicting Princess Donut and Carl. We learn from the announcer voice about a series of patch notes. The team learns that the map is a series of like rigidly gridded neighborhoods put into square miles that they can see on the map. They revisit the original goblin neighborhood that that murder dozer came from. And then Donut charms the leader Gilmore girls and trades meth and info about the source of the meth for their first mount, in-game mount that instantly makes all World of Warcraft players jealous. The goblins clear out and they clean out the goblins before refining their boss strategy using a lot more explosives on the goblin chieftain. Donut leaves out an important detail until after Carl detonates the explosion and kills the boss as well as Carl's conscience.
Whoa. Rest in peace.
Yes, rip in peace. And thank you to Temer for the quick bon appetit. I only have little bones right now for Nova at my desk, so I'm going to give her 4 of them.
Oh, dang. That is a serious...
Big roared. She's also had a lot of treats for me today because the landscapers were outside and she needed soothing. So let's dive right in. Before we do, overall impressions of these chapters. I think that I think you were actually just saying this before we realized we were not recording and started over, but these aren't like the most action-packed, but they're also not entirely full of like just talking and character development and world building. Like it's a nice balance of all the things that we've been getting.
Absolutely agree. I think that at this point in the book, 14 chapters in, or 14 through 18 chapters in, we've seen enough. We've gotten enough exposition to kind of understand how this world works, what the tone is. That doesn't mean that we won't continually be surprised and horrified and struck dumb with, like, my God, what did I just read? Throughout the book and the series in general. But, at this point, we understand what's happening. Carl understands what's happening. He knows what's happened to Donut. We don't have to spend as much time, world building, as you said. So yeah, it wasn't as action packed, but I think it's a good balance of both.
Yeah,
because we understand who Carl is, we understand who Donut is, sort of at this point.
Right. Well, and especially how he is now sitting in the dungeon, and that is like right now he is in a horror film, and his core is being challenged. his ethics, his morality, his conscience, like I mentioned, and it is not going to let up. Is basically what I took away from these chapters.
Oh yeah.
The mechanics of the dungeon are going to continue to be interesting. The focus of the show, the crawl, is going to be a point of tension and negotiation for the players. But it's game time. We are fully in it, especially now that the premiere has ended. Floor 2 is unlocked. People can start looking for the staircase to get down there. They know where they stand in terms of what they may need to do to get viewers. They have at least a bit more information about that. It's viewers and followers, I think. Because that aspect where like they're now also like pseudo competing against one another is like it is started. And there's a lot to do and not a lot of time to do it in. So let's get into some of those details. So the premiere of the Dungeon Crawler World Earth, Carl says, was the most bizarre thing that he has witnessed. He goes on to first describe how viewers of the show don't watch it on a screen, but kind of witness it in VR from like either a place in the scene or from above. And then he immediately pivots and says, except we didn't watch it that way. We watched it on a screen. So this was kind of a weird, kind of almost false start for me in terms of the writing, where he describes it as the weirdest or the most bizarre thing he's ever witnessed, and then starts with the detail that he himself is not actually experiencing, and then goes on to explain his perspective. So that was one little thing that caught me there. And I'm just going to point it out, and I don't necessarily want to linger on it, but it was kind of strange for me. But then Carl goes on to explain that while he's sitting in the Danish McDonald's or Icelandic McDonald's with Donut and Callie, that the camera, like the two-dimensional viewing camera that they are seeing on the screen, is like jerking around, zooming in and out, focusing on weird aspects of the scene. There's lights flashing and sound cutting in and out for no clear reason. And then with all of that, not only that, but the host, who is speaking in that syndicate standard that everyone can sort of technologically, magically all understand, he can still barely understand this guy because of just like the way he speaks. He's an alien. And just the way his body produces noises, it's difficult for him to understand.
So I had a thought about the way that the show was introduced and the flashing lights and how the camera was like focusing in and out and everything. Mm-hmm. I think this was because the show started early. As we know from previous chapters, Dungeon Crawler Earth was not supposed to start for a while. So, and in addition to that, it kind of brought me to mind. Now, I don't know if you watch trash reality TV, but I absolutely do. I fucking love it. I am not sorry. It is good trash, you know? So sometimes whenever they're introducing, people or situations that we'll see later in the series, they shoot these sort of like inflammatory shots when they take things out of context. And, sometimes lights are flashing. Sometimes the camera's jerky to make it look like they're chasing someone who's running away, things like that. And you're like, oh, I wonder what happened there. So maybe there could be a little of that happening in my head canon, in my mind. That's like what they're trying to like generate interest. Like, look at how crazy it is.
Yeah.
Or how crazy it's going to be,
Okay.
So I don't know. There's a couple reasons why the camera work might be shoddy initially.
Sure. I appreciate you reminding me of that detail, that the show seems to have like started early, because that is one fact that that Matt is not hitting us over the head with over and over and over. Or at least he is. If he is, he's doing it in really subtle ways. And this, for me, was another subtle way that I didn't even catch. So thank you for that reminder.
I didn't catch it the first time around either, honestly. It was only on this last reread that I'm doing along with you that I was like, oh shit, was it because
Yeah, well that's the insight, and which I wouldn't consider a spoiler, but it's like hey, this is a detail that might be so small that you might not have noticed, but is important. I love that. So definitely keep reminding us of those things. And yes, even really great reality TV show can have weird editing things. Having been on a reality TV show myself and editing podcasts, I catch a lot of audio things. Yeah, don't worry about it.
oh no, we're not leaving that alone. We're chatting after this.
The show isn't even available online anymore. It was Brigham Young University would come out to colleges that their football team was playing against in advance, and they would film a show called Dining with the Dean. It was like a cooking show. Anyway, I was in college when they came. Yeah. Anyway, but I've been watching the 2018 Great British Bake Off with my partner, which is the season with Rahul and and I noticed upon rewatching the first like 2 or 3 episodes, their contrast of the cameras is really bad indoors. It's like really muted and gray colors inside, but really bright outside. I don't know how they achieve that or why it's that way, because I don't know that much about film. But after like episode 3, it got fixed and everything else was much brighter. So even on nice, like, not trashy reality TV, you can get some weird stuff like that.
That's a really interesting detail. I wasn't aware of that, and now I kind of want to go back and rewatch. So thank you.
Yeah. So Carl notices that on some of the other screens they have the running tally of the number of players. About 15 hours ago, it was 4.15 million, and now it's down to 4 million. So they've lost almost 150,000 crawlers in like a little over 12 hours. Hates it. And like as it's actively ticking down, which is interesting because it feels like this is a moment where players, as long as they've been to guilds, would want to be in a safe zone to watch they would like know that this was going to happen, or maybe there was a previous announcement that said it was going to happen. Anyway, why are there people out there crawling during this show at a rate where they can just be ticking down actively, like death? It's weird. So on the show, there is a recap of the last season of The Crawl. The Squim conglomerate, another corporation, they had the previous season, the battle for planet Eril, that features some furry gorilla creatures. The camera shows the planet and then some fighting, and then the winner's moment where they kill the last enemy and then fall to their knees crying, which the camera immediately cuts away from in this recap, which I think is the Squim conglomerate's attempt to not show the terrible tragedy, of course.
Absolutely.
But to me, is further humanizing the victims that the show, the corporations, and the syndicate are dehumanizing with their shitty reality TV show. And then we get a really interesting perspective from Tally, who's a galactic citizen, that we also learn briefly after when this clip happened, or maybe during this clip, that is not a crawler. So let me play that for you.
I do not like last season's version of the game. They break the people into groups, tell them their loved ones will be safe if they kill others. Then everybody kill one another.
Are they?
Are they what?
Are their loved ones safe if they win?
Aye, they're safe. But they are not safe is better dead. Squim saps the planet dry. It leaves planet, moves on. No more atmosphere. People live after the big fight, but they don't live. Not really. Boren at least gives people a chance.
Wow. There's, I really like this clip because there's a couple things happening. Tally says, I don't like this version of the game. And goes on to talk about how they like take families, threaten the players, and say like your families will be hurt unless you play. And then they just all go and kill each other in kind of a battle royale. And then Carl picks up on a detail about the threat of their safety, but also the promise that they'd be safe if the crawlers participate, and asks a question about that. And Tally's just kind of like, huh? Which to me divides the first thing that they discuss from the second thing, where Tally is talking about how the Squim conglomerate like basically completely wreck the planet and make it unlivable by removing its atmosphere. And says, well, at least Borat gives the people a chance and doesn't leave the planet unlivable. So, but this seems like a very nuanced, very quick dialogue. So when Tally's saying, I don't like this version of the game, how are you reading that comment? Like, what about that version of the game did they not like, do you think?
I think it was more like, I don't like this version of the game. Like, to say the way that Borant is doing it, the way that we've seen, well, that we will see as we go through, is they pinpoint certain players. They're developing a story. There's more story. There's more of like a theme for every floor. Whereas with this version of the crawl, it is a battle royale where they're just like, okay, everybody fights. Everybody fights to the death.
So there's
one person left. So,
there's low production and entertainment value.
Yes, that was how I took it.
Okay. I think there was so much happening, it was hard for me to pinpoint exactly what, but I think that's right. And so Tally is pinpointing like the entertainment value, while Carl is more concerned about the impact on life.
Yes, absolutely. Because he's thinking about.
And Tally's like, huh?
Planet.
What do you mean? That's not what I was talking about.
It's like the same thing as like when we watch if we watch a TV show and we're like, last season was so shitty. I hope they get better writers this time. He's looking at it from like, I don't want to watch this. Let's wait.
This is a reality TV show where there's 8 different production companies working on it one season. Exactly. And they cycle through who's producing the show. So, then Tally does kind of narrow in on some of the cruelty. Like at least Boren gives people a chance and doesn't completely trash the planet. We learn that Tally was not a crawler. Instead, Borant or some of these corporations will come to worlds and offer like, we won't mine your planet. We will take a number of people for manpower in our other productions. This is interesting to me. They must be getting more worlds than they can produce the show for, or they might be offered the mining rights, and there might not be as many. I'm just guessing here. Like, so they choose to offer to not mine the world, and for some reason, to me, this is saying that for some reason they're determining mining this world, it's not really like we can't get a show out of it, which is where the real money is, as we know. So either like it would be more valuable to us to have the labor power and like NPCs for our other shows, or we'll just mine it. Your choice. Well, we're kind of indifferent.
Right. And I kind of took it that same way as well. It's like, we're not really going to get much out of this. Like, or maybe the people from Tally's home world were inherently boring or peaceful. You know what I mean?
Less physically capable biologically. Right. So there's like less exciting potential for a dungeon. Yeah.
So, and if as they're creating the dungeon, there are we, like with any show, we know that there are writers and we know that there are designers and things like that. So maybe just with that in mind, knowing that, like, if they had something specific in mind for that season of Dungeon Crawler World, maybe there was another world that was nearby that had been seeded, that it was up for grabs, and it was like, well, we can do this one or this one, but we still need NPCs to populate that dungeon.
Right.
So,
there's a
yeah, I took it the
tendency
exact same way.
in writing and in fiction when aliens or other intelligent species are concerned that tends to anthropomorphize lots of the aliens or otherwise depict races of aliens as being different from human and then looking at them through a deficit lens. Like, oh, this species, they don't have hands and arms and can't manipulate things as proficiently as humans, or can't move as fast as humans, or aren't as intelligent as humans, and it just like really looks at them through a deficit lens. And that's what it seems like is going on here. Is there's like, for some reason, they don't want to mine this planet, and we're looking at Tally's species through a deficit lens in terms of their entertainment value and factor. It kind of it's disgusting to me.
Absolutely.
Which,
I mean, but the thing is like, we won't ever really know. But it's that kind of those little details, like just based on these kinds of like small interactions and conversations that he has with the NPCs that, you know, are such wonderful little details that are peppered in, because like we'll never revisit this again. This is the only time that we're ever going to hear or see a conversation like this about worlds that were
right. Yeah. And it's not fully explored in the text here. It's just like sprinkled in to leave us to interpret it. Like, however we choose, whatever reason we choose to concoct in our head for why they are not making a show on that world. Like, we can fill that in, and the answer is probably, you know, in Matt Dinniman's head, a lot of those things. But also the beauty of writing is you can throw that in because you've thought of a number of reasons, and then it's like, you know what, I'm not going to answer that question. Leave blank spaces.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Because, you know, and again, this is not a spoiler. This is just something that you will discover as you read the books. He's like a master of asking a question and then answering it 2 books later. You know what I mean? Like, he does leave those blank spaces. He allows room for like to come back to revisit some of those concepts that we're just now starting to see like a glimpse of. So he's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. So the show moves on to talking about Earth. It plays some weird mariachi EDM music, and then has a 10-minute discussion about humans, mostly focused on their reproduction and reproductive organs. And I wrote here, apparently anatomy and biology are important to a season's context, and they must do this with every season of the show. But then I remembered, wait, aren't there like these like 6 or 7 or 8 seedling species, and humans are one of them, and they're regularly featured on the crawl like every 8 seasons or something like that? So like, why would they? Maybe they just do it every season. I don't know. But
so like, with convergent evolution, we have to also take into account environment, right? And maybe our cash and prizes is different from another humanoid species cash and prizes.
That's fair.
Because, you know, we don't know. Maybe they're in the water and they have tentacles because they need to like stick together or something. I don't know, but I enjoy thinking about it.
I'm sure you do, Shannon. I'm sure you think about it a lot.
Absolutely do. So much. So much.
The show then moves on to looking at human architecture and society with some cherry-picked images of abandoned buildings, garbage dumps, wink, shots from fictional disaster films, all to make Earth humans look squalid, presumably with the desired effect of making viewers less sympathetic to the crawlers or more sympathetic to the corporation itself for lifting humans on Earth out of their horrific circumstances. I mean, yes, we do have horrific circumstances, but it's not bad and entirely in the way that they're depicting on film.
Right. They're making it the worst of the absolute worst.
Yeah,
Look at these monsters. We're helping them. So
right, exactly. And then they go on to show humans themselves. They show drug users, people like shooting at each other, murderers. They show like violent children bullies beating up another child. They show a depiction from a serial killer film, some crying elderly people. A dead horse for some reason, says Carl, and then that serial killer movie that won Best Picture. And then finally, and this is a cherry on the top to me, the Charlie Bit My Finger video.
it's just a nice little detail. Like, why wouldn't they?
Right, because
that's
not as horrific as the rest of this, but it's weird. It's really weird. And if that was the video, like if we sent out a probe, playing our, whatever media we wanted to put out there into the galaxy, the Galactic Society, Charlie Bit My Finger is not the piece I would want to represent us.
Look at those dum-dums. Yeah.
Imagine, I don't know why my head went to this, but also like Ace Ventura would not be on my top list either.
No, right? Like you just wouldn't want this to be the representative of humanity. There's like, we're not putting our best foot forward there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of went by unceremoniously. Thank you.
Yeah.
But we had our first audio clip, and I have another one here for us. I have 8 for this episode, and I probably will not have this many again in the future. But I just, since I think I want to take the time to talk about the voice that is being depicted here and the different voices of the characters, I think it's kind of important. So. And to see how Jeff Hayes presents all the various characters. So I have one here that demonstrates when someone ignorant of Earth is reacting to these images. Ironically, that person is not Tally, but is Donut. And we get Carl succinctly pointing out the effect that of the show's editing. I think that this clip also does a great job of highlighting Donut's voice, Carl's exterior voice, and Carl's inner voice, and how those two are different, which comes up a lot as I've been listening to all of the chapters while I'm reading them. So yeah, note the difference between the inner and outer tone.
Ooh, wow. I didn't realize Earth sucked so badly. Disgusting.
That's not how it really is. I paused. Not is. Was. The world is gone. They're making it look like they're the good guys, saving us from ourselves.
So, yeah, there is Donut's voice, sultry, I think is the term they used to describe it the first time we heard it.
Yes.
And I was surprised that it is Jeff Hayes doing every single voice in this, because a couple of those voices just do not sound like him. But Donut has a lovely voice here.
I would describe her voice as like, I think I said it like in one of the other episodes, but twee.
Yes.
I don't know if you're familiar. Yes, like that's how when I hear her voice, I just think twee, because she's like overly like delicate and like, I don't know, just like affects a British accent. It's just
right.
Everything about her is just like she's so extra.
Oh my god, it is terribly extra. Yeah, it sounds like this voice would do really well in like a animated like a period drama. You know, like your Pride and Prejudice.
Oh yeah. Can definitely see her rocking like some like a very fancy dress and a crown and some heels.
Well, she has one of those, a tiara. So the other piece here, besides like Donut being like, oh my god, Earth fucking sucks, and Carl just being like, Carl acts out really upset. Like, look at the injustice they're doing. Like, these guys are fucking liars. They're making us look bad. Fuck them. But on his inside, he's like, oh yeah, Earth, it's gone. I'm like still coming to terms with that. Not is, but how it was.
It was.
Like,
it
so,
is gone.
Yeah, so his inner voice is in a lot of the audiobook, his inner voice is very calm, or like a little bit on the sadder side. But like the way he presents himself is very reactive, very action, very loud, bombastic in a lot of ways. Lots of like, what the hell, donut? Like, fuck this, I'm out of here. Like, I'd rather go walk off to my death than hang out with you and put up with this bullshit. Yeah, like, they're just very different voices and almost two different characters, but they're definitely not two different characters. But there's clearly a lot happening between his like subconscious and internal monologue and his exterior monologue. And I think for me, that's really getting solidified at this point in this in the story, because and it started to bubble up with him being like constantly in reaction to the terraforming, like, oh, the earth is gone, very sad, but then very like, I need to survive. And now it's not only is Earth gone that he's being reminded of, and the people he knows are dead, but also like what he had to do to that woman that was turned into the Hoarder comes up a lot here in these chapters.
He's very much still affected by it. He's still thinking about it.
Yeah. But he gets especially passionate and emotive when there is injustice perceived by him. And just as a reminder, there is a player killer out there that he just said he wants to hunt in the last chapter. I already have forgotten the name of that person, but
Frank Q.
It's like J something.
It's Frank Q.
Oh, Frank Q. Sorry, I misheard you. I thought you said thank you.
No. Thank you.
Yeah. So the show goes on to show the collapse of Earth and a CGI rendition of the first 3 floors being created. Then it shows 40 minutes, apparently, of people just dying in the dungeon, which is a disgusting amount of time. Must be what the big data says sells ads. Of which we did see an ad here at one point, which is just like a gray metal can for 15 minutes or 15 seconds. Anyway, as Carl is watching this, he notes that most people in the dungeon appear to be from India, Africa, and South America. I'm not sure if he's just like noting how people appear, or if there's actual like data being presented by the show on like how many people, like where geographically people are entering the dungeon and the numbers there.
I'm not sure about that either. They never really went further into that. So
yeah. It shows groups of people, sometimes up to 1,000 or more people, which is wild. But then like people stampeding over each other, trying to escape from monsters. Horrible to know that not only are the monsters killing people, but people are killing people, and sometimes unintentionally or unmaliciously. He wonders. He remarks on his circumstances and why he felt he was needed to enter the dungeon because of how cold it was, sub-zero temperatures in Seattle apparently, which I don't know when the last time that's ever happened, but again contrived. But he wonders what made other people feel compelled to enter the dungeon. He must be kind of evaluating his circumstances as extreme and wondering how extreme other people's circumstances might have been.
Also, at one point, he mentions that, like, because of where, he was in the world, he was aware that, like, it was nighttime there. It was like 3 a.m. or something like that. It was 2 o'clock in the morning whenever, like, the world collapsed, basically. And he knew that on the other side of the world, it was daytime. There are probably a lot more survivors.
Yeah.
Because people were probably out and about and not sleeping in bed when it happened.
Right. Well, it's interesting he mentions India, which is one of the most population dense areas of the world.
Mhm.
I don't know as much about Africa and South America.
Mordecai also mentioned that like he kind of at like in one of the earlier chapters he kind of mentions like he's like I wonder if it's random. I wonder if there are if there were if it was like he wonders like how likely he would have been with the entire population of the entire world, how likely it would have been for there to be two such spotlights in his city highlighting where the dungeon was, right?
Right.
So it probably had something to do with population density. So it's not random. Like if they're not just like going to throw a dungeon entrance into like East Bumfuck nowhere, like in the middle of the woods. Like nobody's going to find that. Like,
right. Yeah.
So yeah, there is it is intentional. Like the people that they choose.
Apparently, like it costs money to move materials and reconstitute things. So yeah, why even bother placing entrances where you're not going to get a lot of people? Like their fairness is not a value.
Right.
Equity is not a value that the Boring Corporation has. At least not when it comes to where to spend our money. So they depict this group, some really large groups. They show one group of 10 people armed to the teeth doing really well. They take out a boss, I think a borough or a city boss, I think it was.
Yes, it was a borough boss.
A borough boss, which is the next level up from neighborhood. I think it goes neighborhood, borough, city, or maybe capital. City, then capital. I have it here somewhere. Neighborhood, borough, city, province, country, floor boss.
Floor boss. Yeah, it's a big one.
And then they also show a 13-year-old girl with a really determined look on her face. I think they say she's from Brazil. Yeah, Lucia Mar. She apparently gets some armor, puts it on, and then puts her jersey over the armor because she's such a proud person. I love that little bit of characterization. She has two Rottweilers, Cece and Gustavo 3. Who are both capable of, they have armor on and are using magic, which is fucking sick.
I mean, she's doing well for herself.
She's a companion class. Like that's what she's gonna have is like just buff my dudes, buff my pets, like a ranger or a pet master. There's some talk here about like the naming conventions, especially as it relates to surnames. So Gustavo 3 must have been the third Gustavo without a last name to join.
Because they're not really going by like last names. Like Lucia Mar, like we know who she is because she was highlighted on the episode, but like it's mostly just like they go by their first names because like there's
Johnny. What was it? Johnny Q.
Frank
Q, Lucia Mar. Carl suspects he must be the first Carl to have entered the dungeon, which is probably true because the USA was asleep and there's not a lot of Carls elsewhere in the world. Anyway.
But you'll see that naming convention a couple of times, like where they'll have these numbers after their name and but that's just how they make sense of it. And maybe it's like, I think it's more like with Frank Q, right? Specifically, I think it's more that he was looking at the details of the crawler that Frank killed. So he was maybe able to see more. Perhaps Frank was the first Frank to enter the dungeon, and that's why he's not Frank 1Q or Frank 2Q or whatever.
I wonder, I bet the first Frank is just labeled as just Frank, and then after that, it looks at surname, I think. And possibly, then it's like, okay, Frank, there's Frank, then Frank Q, and then the next Frank Q is probably Frank Q2, or it might like, use his full surname or something. I don't know.
Possibly.
It's
yeah,
it's
I
not
don't know.
that important, I don't
no-
think, but
It's interesting though.
it's interesting. You know, they're them having to negotiate all of these logistical details because they have a naming system for crawlers. Very odd, but it also, you know, might have to be somehow universal to be able to use it on other dungeon crawls, or maybe they just made it for the crawl Earth. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. Donut. The show ends. Donut is very upset that they were not shown at all. She almost immediately gets an answer to why they weren't shown, and the answer is there is nothing special about what they have achieved so far. And so we get, and I have a clip to depict this announcer voice that we've seen and has come out a couple of times, particularly right when the dungeon opened. But apparently we're going to get weekly updates from, weekly updates, or an update after each of the episodes airs of the crawl from this voice. And so here is the public service announcement.
That's it.
Donut demanded.
After that epic battle with Horda, we received no screen time. This is unacceptable.
Before she could rant further, an announcement came. It was the same woman who spoke when the gates first closed.
Good job so far, everyone. We had 15 burrow bosses taken out and over 1,500 neighborhood bosses killed. A pair of crawlers even came across a city boss. But that ended as you might expect. Losses are right on the projected track.
Losses are right on the projected track. Oh boy. That's so first of all, this sounds like a Target manager coming in over the PA and an announcer to the store. Just
She's great. She's
although
a good character. Yeah.
No employee of Target sounds that excited. So that can't be right. Maybe a Best Buy or
maybe a Best Buy.
Maybe a Best Buy.
But one of the things that wasn't in that clip is this character's sort of tagline and the thing that she ends every announcement.
Yeah, we will get to that. But yeah, do you want to share the tagline?
Yeah, she says, and as always, remember, get out there and kill, kill, kill.
Oh, so good. And she's just so perky as she says it.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that's great about this particular voice is it's so perky. And it's part of the reason why I think that this is an actual person and not just an AI. I think we have a couple AIs.
Oh no, it's a person. It is definitely a person. Yeah, no. So the AI that you hear whenever he's like boss battle or whatever.
There's like the AI. So this is the PSA voice is what I'm going to call it. There's the announcer voice, like monster truck rally voice, and then there's the like information like clippy voice. Like, did you know?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
But that clippy, like, seen here, like whenever like he is like hovering over a mob and you hear that voice, that is the AI.
Right. And that was the one that also read that like legal jargon right up front, right?
Right, exactly. And that was prior, I think, to it developing a personality, maybe like prior to it having, building a rapport with the other like crawlers, or seeing what gets a reaction and in how it says things.
Yeah. One thing that I wonder about is if it is the same AI. Like, is it a single instance of the AI speaking to every crawler in the dungeon? And like all of that is going back to this one entity, or does Carl have his own system AI that is different and can, quote, think independently or act independently from, say, Donut's system AI voice and Mordecai's system AI voice?
I'm going to answer that
but
with yes and no.
yes and no. Got it. Okay. Great. So
Doesn't help at all.
yeah. So there was, I already forgot how many, to like 10 or 11 burrow bosses killed, which we saw one of them killed by that group of 10 people. And then 1,500 neighborhood bosses have been killed. And that one of those was Carl and Donut, which was
the hoarder. Yeah.
the hoarder, and not horribly exciting. I mean, maybe beating her face was a clippable moment, like pummeling it, or maybe throwing the stick of dynamite in, but the boss wasn't exposed at that point, so who knows.
Just kind of picture Carl going, "I'm sorry."
Yeah,
as
right.
He's beating her to death. Like,
Yeah.
It was rough.
As we just saw, they don't want to see crawlers feeling sorry for themselves. That isn't exciting content, quote, or sellable content. And they really want unique things. So like 10 armed dudes stacked to the teeth, way more exciting. 13-year-old girl with 2 magic dogs, way more exciting.
2 giant Rottweilers.
I bet if Donut hadn't been such a scaredy cat, maybe.
Ooh.
Who could say?
Maybe.
Anyway, so the PSA woman goes on to talk about some patch notes. Oh, this is exciting. There's patch notes. They can reprogram how the magic of the tech behind the scenes works. There's a couple things here. Fire Fingers, the spell, is now safe to cast. It's a fun little thing there. People no longer explode when entering someone else's bathroom.
Yep, that was the one that got me. I was like, fuck, dude.
There's a couple. Glad we didn't get to see either of these. Or the context for which some of these things happen is just great. What was once unlimited toilet paper is now 1 per floor. The infinite toilet paper bug has been patched. You only get 1 per floor, so if you lose it or use it, you'll have to figure it out. So I wrote you should always maybe take the toilet paper with you, so that in case it disappears between floors, you can bring your extra leftover toilet paper with you. And then also check
find a way to punish them.
Check dead crawlers inventory for toilet paper, because I think I did the math before. Like, if it's always 5 more days than the previous floor per floor, that's
going to get real bad.
855 days of the crawl, but only 18 rolls of toilet paper. That's not gonna work.
No, and there's gonna be there's gonna be a lot of really beat up looking t-shirts is all I'm trying to say.
Well, maybe Carl just needs to find a bidet and then install it in his toilet, and get towels that he can toss.
Yep.
Anyway.
I also really like these little details about the patches that we haven't seen personally be exploited by Carl and Donut, but that obviously other crawlers who have entered the dungeon are experiencing their own personal hell.
Yes,
where somebody tried to go into a bathroom after a person and they exploded.
Right.
So it's everyone is experiencing this equally. We're only seeing it from Carl and Donut's point of view, but can you imagine trying to cast Fire Fingers and engulfing yourself in flames? So,
or just burning your own fingers so bad.
Dude, yeah.
To me, what this is saying is we didn't think of everything, which is a facet of game design. And sometimes the risk is going to be high for trying things, even if they're things that seem like they're a part of the game, and should have been thought through. Things like casting a spell that we can teach you, or entering a dungeon space like a bathroom. Obviously, there's some weird portaling technology happening with the bathrooms. But
It's
yeah,
personal space.
it's a personal space. There is some other stuff with the inventory system, and what it seems like is the inventory system is like a proprietary technology that carries over from crawl to crawl, but that they give major tweaks to every season. So some other changes that happen related to the inventory system: you cannot transport mobs in the inventory to kill them. I'm remembering that one of the major like rules of the inventory system is like, if it's something you can pick up for so many seconds, you can put it in your inventory. So apparently people were picking up mobs and holding them and then placing them in their inventory to kill them, suffocate them, crush them.
Very
I don't know, which is very clever. And then the other thing, momentum is no longer conserved, which is interesting. Like, ride on a vehicle, holding something, put it in your inventory, and then take it out once you're standing still. You can fire it like a bullet.
Launch it at someone. Yeah, exactly.
There is a note. Remember, this inventory system is a privilege and it's not meant to be used as a weapon. While we love and admire your creativity, any unintentional exploits will be patched. And so it seems like, you know, we like creativity, but don't use some of the tools like the inventory as a weapon. Like, that is not its purpose. If you don't have a weapon, that's your fault. You shouldn't be able to just use the system as a weapon.
Exactly.
Which actually seems like reasonable game design. Granted, this isn't a reasonable game. The premise of the game is not reasonable.
No, not at all. Yeah.
But I agree with the design philosophy. And with that, the staircase to the second floor is populated. It's noted that once you climb down, you cannot climb back up. If you climb down, you are held in stasis until the previous floor collapses. They are advised, keep that in mind when considering your social numbers. So, like, basically, if you go down too early, your inactivity will negatively hurt your social numbers, like your followers.
Yes, absolutely. And because people won't be able to follow you or what it is that you're doing.
And it's a reminder, time and activity in the game are a resource, and you must be hyperactive. You must be efficient and effective. It goes on to say, viewers tend to lose interest quickly. You'll shed favorites if you're not accessible for a couple days. I assume if you're in stasis, you just like cannot be viewed in the stream. We recommend descending to the next level no earlier than 6 hours before the scheduled collapse. If you descend during that window, there will be no stasis involved. You'll actually get a head start over those who came before you. Good luck. Let's have a great 30 hours until the next episode, Tunnels. Now get out there and kill.
A Syndicate standard day is roughly 30 hours.
Oh, okay. Good to know. So yeah, this immediately got me thinking about like what are the circumstances under which you would actually want to like stasis
Descend
yourself early? Yeah. If you're being chased by something really nasty, just go. If you don't have enough of a resource like food or water that you need to live, and you've like run out of options or are also being chased or something, I don't know, but it's very interesting to think about. Might come up later. We'll see.
Potato.
Yeah. Donut immediately gets her brave face back. Obviously, we need to find one of these city bosses. That'll guarantee a feature next episode. That's what we need to focus on. Carl notes that it took 10 well-armed crawlers to kill maybe they killed a city boss, or no, they killed a burrow boss, I thought. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But he's thinking, I don't think we can kill a city boss, Donut. But he offers, we need to locate an exit, and looks at the map. As a reminder, they can see 1 square mile on the map, and that the staircase will appear even if it's out in the fog of war. they have 3.5 days to find it. Carl does some quick mental math about the surface area of the Earth and the number of staircases that will be created. Apparently he's been taking really great notes, because I don't remember how big the Earth is or even how many entrances they said. And they said it like a day ago, 2 days ago. 75,000 entrances, over 200,000 or 200 million square miles of the Earth. That's one entrance on average every 2,667 square miles. Fuck. Now, if I lived in an urban area like Seattle, which I do, I would be like, there's going to be like, there'll be a staircase around here, maybe in a suburb. So like, I've got 5 days to walk around and find one. That's not horribly bad. I also think, Carl has some experience in the Coast Guard, which uses search patterns when locating like lost people or lost vessels. And they do like an actual triangle pattern, which has some like interesting philosophy around that I've learned about, but I don't quite remember. But I wonder, like in my head, it's like, oh, that's really interesting. I wonder if that could help. Probably not, but that'd be interesting. Also, I wonder if the NPCs know.
Didn't know
that. So if they
where the stairwells are?
Uh-huh.
You know, I don't know. I know some of them. I mean, like, I guess it depends on the mob and how close.
Yes, exactly. But like, if you can like convince, say, a floor boss, like, tell me where the, or not a floor boss, but like a neighborhood boss or a borough boss. Like, if you can defeat one, you could like barter with it for its life.
See, but that's the thing. I don't think that they would. I think that they would rather die.
They probably aren't even told, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
But this is some interesting information.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where we leave it. Just this kind of like, all right, we need to find the stairwell. No, we need to kill a really big boss.
Yep.
So they head out. In chapter 15, Carl learns that since his place, his home was like a 1/4 mile from the Puget Sound, which I will note is not the westernmost part of Washington State, much less the West Coast, but he determines that he is on like the actual west edge of the map, at least this section. We know that the world map is not one conjoined area, but there's probably many areas, but he suspects he's at an edge. Because there is nothing, like he walks along the main road and there are only east facing doors, and those are going into the Goblin neighborhood. Mm-hmm. He also starts to kind of do some mental math about where the Hoarder neighborhood is, and the Llama neighborhood. They climb up to the north end of the Hoarder neighborhood and find that there's like some slimes up there. And that they start migrating in. They try to fight them. It does not go well. They're kind of like gelatinous cubes from Dungeons and Dragons. And when he tries to punch them, he is ineffective at hurting them, and they start to burn him. And it is only his like damage reflection skill that does anything to them. And in fact, is what kills him. Carl gets in a lot of pain. He loses a glove and the entire sleeve of his jacket to one they find, and then they decide.
They very wisely decide.
They retreat.
Fuck no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of like trying to like keep on keeping on, they're like, nope, nope.
Exactly. And so they determine after some exploration that those main roads that have like side entrances that go into these neighborhoods of hoarders, goblins, llamas, and slimes, that those like I'm going to call them highways. Like they are divided into a neat grid of square 1/4 miles that divide the neighborhoods, and that four adjacent neighborhoods make up like the square mile that he can see on a map. So basically, I mean, I don't know exactly how big a borough is, but if a borough is just 4 of these neighborhoods. Like a square mile is a borough. Anyway,
yeah.
I mean, boroughs could be much bigger than that. I don't know. It has not been shared.
I imagine that like a borough like took into in my head a borough is like multiple surrounding areas, like several.
That makes sense.
Like several towns.
Yeah. Donut and Carl discover the chat feature, which is a nice way of like non-verbally communicating that could be really useful to be on the same page when interacting with someone, which they actually explicitly do not use in a later circumstance in this set of chapters. But Carl's receiving a bunch of texts from Donut. Donut loves this because it startles Carl. She says, "Now I understand why Miss Beatrice was always on her phone." There's a comment about wishing the internet was down here. And as they're kind of plotting around and figuring out the grid system, they find that the Tutorial Guild sign that was a trap that the murder dozer came out of. And they head right into the Goblin neighborhood, which smells of oil, machines, and pineapple. I wrote, so was Hawaii, like the Dole plantation, like reconstituted here? I don't know why there's so many pineapples, or maybe there was just a large pineapple shipment nearby. Who knows why? Donut remarks on them being on the west edge of the map and needing to head eastward. Carl agrees. Donut says she's fine killing goblins. Carl states only if we have to. They come across some goblins almost immediately with, once again, pineapples on their sticks. Carl shows his tattoo that is like showing out through his jacket, which is still on the arm that the sleeve was not torn on. Or disintegrated on. He shows it and claims he has passage. On the mini-map, their dots immediately turn from red to white. They are no longer hostile to him immediately. They also
seem pretty confused about it,
yes,
too.
They are confused. They kind of study him. They gibber in Goblin a little bit and begin to question Carl where he got the tattoo. So I have another clip here.
Where you get that mark, human? I had a carefully prepared answer. Hopefully they would...
He blew up one of your filthy tractors and smeared 3 of your friends all over the cobblestones.
I wanted this clip to depict the goblin, but also to demonstrate how wonderfully in both the writing and especially when you're less prepared because you can't see what's coming on the page, when Matt Dinniman cuts himself off or cuts a character off with it to interrupt. Right. Especially Carl's inner monologue, like getting interrupted is just so fun every time it happens.
Right.
So Carl getting interrupted by Donut, they've been so great about planning things, these two, and we will see even more of that later. But here Donut just doesn't care. There is no preparation but there is preparation by just Carl, and it is ignored by Donut. She says,
"Blew up one of your companions." Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, we killed a bunch of you, and that's where we got it. I noted here, listening here, just one more note about the audio that, for a lot of the NPCs and monsters that speak, Jeff's voice and the character voice, there's an echo that is not present when Donut and Carl are speaking. And I wonder if for all of these, for many of these voices, if that was like an intentional effect or a like recording in a different studio. But there's something like, there's an echoing quality there that I'm picking up on.
Possibly. I feel like there are like dozens of interviews with Jeff, and I'm certain that at some point someone addresses it. So like I could probably dig one up for you if you want.
No,
Like,
it's fine. I just like if you do, great. I'm not going to ask you to, but it's just something I'm noticing. There's also in a previous chapter some weird. There's like a much weirder effect I noticed, and I'm not going to go back and like record it, but in some of the earlier chapters there was some really weird audio stuff that happened where he was like getting kind of cut off a little bit, or there was like a weird sound coming through. I don't exactly remember, but I'll continue to note weirdness because I am sort of obsessed with audio editing, even though I'm not a professional at it. But I do note and hear some of those things. So Carl berates Donut and tells her to let him do the talking, and she comes back with, "I have 37 in charisma, dumbass." And I also am remembering she has the first impression skill, which is probably also helping here. She's like, I'll do the talking, actually, Carl, if you don't mind. She talks to the goblins. She gives them names, which they affirm like, we don't actually have names. She gives them names. She calls them sweethearts and would you be a love? And we'd love to talk to an engineer gentleman, talk to an engineer, the gentlemen that wear, shit on their heads. Yes, ma'am. We'll be happy to lead you. Points at Tiara. It's not ma'am. It's Princess Donut. Oh, yes, Princess Donut.
It's Brittany, bitch. That's what I'm hearing right now. 100%.
Carl is wondering how, like, exactly what this is going on. Donut says it's my charisma. It's so high that basically any intelligent, non-hostile, non-boss NPC can be made to do anything by me in the first 4 to 5 floors. Yes. 4 to 5 floors? That's like...
Yeah, dude.
That's like a third of, or a quarter of the dungeon. That's insane.
But also consider that on each floor, if she's at a 37 now, her charisma is going, it's just going to keep...
I think her charisma is still going up by 1 every level.
But like,
because it's her constitution and dex that are not going up.
There's buffs, there's gear, there's all kinds of stuff. And like charisma is very important to Donut. So like, so you're like, oh my God, the first 5 floors, like by the time she gets to the 5th floor, who even knows what her charisma is going to be? So like, she's like, this is cake, friend. This is cake. Don't even worry about it.
I begin to wonder what the limits of this are. And we do start to see some of the boundaries of it appear later in some of the interactions with the goblin leaders that we see. So I'll remark on that again later. They lead them, the goblins lead our heroes through the neighborhood. We see some new goblin types. We're introduced to bomb bards, which I think is great. A great little pun. And it's here we hear the system AI voice that I will let describe the bomb bards, which comes up as we witness one of them staring our team down.
Goblin Bombard, level 5. These bastards are more unhinged and sadistic than those guys who couldn't pass the psych exam to join the military. Bombards are experts with explosives, and they strike with a variety of ranged attacks that'll blow your socks off. If the one you're looking at right now has more than half of his fingers, then he's probably very, very dangerous.
Love the system AI voice. It's both neutral and playful, maybe because of the writing. And I don't know if the system AI is the one doing the writing of these introductions and achievements, but it's great.
I describe it as like game show hosty.
This is not the game show host voice, is it?
Like the personality overall of the AI in these like early chapters is very much like, hey, check this thing out, dumbass. Like, you've won a new blah blah. Like, you know what I mean? It's very like tell him what he's won, Frank. You know what I mean? Like that. It's
okay. Just to be clear, is this the voice that read the legal jargon, or is this the one that reads the achievements too?
This is the one that reads the achievements as well.
Oh, okay. I think I got them mixed up.
Reward.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. All right. So as the system AI is describing this one as like, they're super sadistic. If they have all their fingers, beware. We see that this one has all of its fingers. It's glaring at Carl and Donut. It's also tossing up this like glass ball, just like kind of, like I'm here. I'm just, doing my thing.
Playing catch with a dangerous
playing catch with a dangerous thing that's making all the surrounding goblins nervous and like flinch every time it does. And they're led into a workshop that has a door on the other end. Carl is looking at his mini map and notes that it is an identical size and shape to the hoarder boss room. There are like 25 goblin engineers and 2 other goblins called shamunkas and a couple others. The engineers are all wearing like sports helmets as armor and tending to a really large steam engine and 6 murder dozers that they have here. He notes that there's a ton of like work tables and piles of coal that stretch up to the ceiling. There is one of these shamunka, which are both women and have a ton of piercings. There's one of them that's level 7 that comes towering over all the other goblins. It has a wooden staff with a pineapple carved into it, not an actual pineapple like all the other like normal level 2 goblins. Sharp teeth, dozens of piercings. The AI tells us that shamunka means female shamans. They're the leaders of the goblins, second only to a war chief or sometimes a warlord, which makes me think, okay, war chieftain is like the neighborhood boss. Warlords are like a borough boss, for example. And then the AI characterizes them, quote, they are without humor and are said to, as part of their training, to have to pick 2 of the following to graduate Shamunka University: fuck, cook, and or eat their own parents. Most don't pick cook. They use anguish magic, which focuses and enhances damage from other attacks.
Yeah.
The
goblins are pretty fucked up.
They're pretty fucked up. This is yet another weird sexual violence reference. Shannon, you keep telling me that you don't think it's intentional in this way. I still think it's weird because it keeps coming up.
I think this is intentional. I think for this class of people, it's really not as bad after this. This is like maybe I'm just numb to it and I don't notice it anymore. That's also possible. But like, I don't know. I think it's just meant to like give like flavor and spice.
Yeah.
So that we, you know what I mean? Like these are disgusting, dangerous, horrible, monstrous NPCs.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It does. It is like, I think that most of the time it seems like it is part of the system trying to make this feel like adult violence and adult horror and an adult fiction and try to be intimidating to the crawlers. But again, this is also Matt Dinniman making choices about how he is trying to portray those things. It's quick and effective.
You get it. You have a vision in your mind of the kind of person that this creature is. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's meant to be intimidating. It's not working on me. It's not working on Carl. The shamunka here tells them that they're not welcome despite the pass. So even though something mechanical, something in the rules of the game that's supposed to help them, there are limits to it. I'm noting that with the goblin pass. And we're going to also note this with charisma here. Carl has what seems to be another prepared response. He asks to buy a murder dozer. He's like, it would be great to have a vehicle to get around the dungeon safely. I would like to buy one from me. The goblin Shamanka looks at him, quote, as if I just asked her to eat a Twinkie out of my ass.
Out of my ass. That's like one of my favorite lines.
That's pretty great. That works for me. She is infuriated with him, and then Donut interjects with some insulting remarks about her piercings. Is it like some sort of performance art, or do you wear these piercings because they made you eat your parents? The Shamanka, even more furious and rageful, turns to Donut, but then is completely charmed by her when she kind of like shows her tiara, which I think is one of the things granting a ton of charisma and the first impression skill. And it basically charms the goblin because she like turns ragefully, and then her face softens, her voice goes from really gruff to soft, and she just sits down cross-legged in front of Donut.
Which, to be fair, this is the proper response when you see a cat. Doesn't matter how mad you are at it. You're like, I'm going to sit here and try and pet this floof.
So she gets mocked, then charmed, sits down. Donut continues to mock her and asks her, oh, or are the piercings a daddy thing? And the Shamanka just breaks down crying and admits, yes, it's true. It is a daddy thing. And then Donut proceeds to walk over and curl up and sit in her lap.
Yep.
This is
like, let's talk it out. Yeah.
This is like the standoff, like Western film scene that immediately turns into just absolute chaos. Like it turned into one of those stupid college comedies like your Van Wilder, your Superbad, where things just get really weird, hilariously, really suddenly.
Yep. Her charisma does crazy shit to these NPCs.
Donut sits in her lap. The other Shamanka that's in the room comes running over, also immediately gets charmed. They like bend down and start like embracing each other and having ugly cries, talking about their true feelings around their piercings and the trauma they've experienced as goblin women. The other one cries about eating their father raw. I assume they're referring to eating him raw in the food sense and not the other sense that we heard about how they interact with their parents.
That's how I took it. Yep. That was...
And then to put a cherry on the top of this dramatically emotional scene, Donut proceeds to name them Rory and Lorelei.
Yep.
The Goblin Gilmore Girls are here.
I love it. I like that she just named. She's like, you don't have a name. All right, you're gonna be B.A. and you're Chumley or whatever. Like she just like everybody has a name.
My reading of this is that it is part of Donut's attempt to charm people by like imparting like I who don't actually care for your name, or if you even have a name, I will bequeath you a name because it is a name that pleases me, that you should feel honored to have because I've given it to you.
You're special to me now because I've given you a name.
But also I'm mocking you.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm winning you. I'm winning you over while also having fun.
Exactly. But like the way that she's mocking her makes it, she's presenting it in a way that makes it seem like concern. Like, look at your bone structure. You're gorgeous. You don't need all that garbage in your face. Like just,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like presenting it in a way like where it's like the mean girl trying to be helpful.
It's both talking down and endearing. Somehow simultaneously, which is really,
very strange
really
line to toe.
If it were me receiving it, I would not be charmed by it, but I think it is charming characterization of Donut that she's holding both of these things somehow at the same time that one can only presume would be contradictory.
Absolutely. This is Donut, you know, like this is her whole thing where she's kind of a dick. because she's a cat.
Yeah.
She is incredibly charismatic.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay,
So
this is fine.
uh-huh. So I can't tell if this is genuine like mental influence happening and how like behind the scenes this is happening. But it's happening. And or the NPCs are just acting along because they're being prompted to by the system AI. I'm not really sure. But we learn that even though they've been immediately charmed, that the charisma will only go so far and that they can't get exactly what they want immediately. So here's another audio clip.
Rory wiped her face.
We cannot part with a murder dozer. They are much too valuable, and the chieftain would literally kill us. But I will have them make a human-sized chopper, one with a sidecar. But we can't do it for free. You gotta trade something.
We'll give you a chopper, a human-sized one with a sidecar. So we'll give you something, but you have to trade for it, and it can't be a murder dozer. Like, there are lines we cannot cross, even with your 37 charisma. And we can't just give you something because you ask for it. There needs to be, at least some sort of tit for tat. So Carl immediately starts offering various things that he has. He offers gunpowder. They respond, "We already have fun powder," pointing at barrels cartoonishly marked with like the red XXX on them. What is this, Looney Tunes? Carl notices as he looks at the barrels that the machinery and tools and shit happening all around the workshop are constantly emitting sparks everywhere. And this is where they stash the gunpowder. There's also just huge stacks of coal.
There is no OSHA in the dungeon,
Nope.
Nick.
You know what's really funny is that I ran a community dungeon crawl Dungeons and Dragons show called Deadly Dungeon, and there was a group that a lot of the groups themed themselves. I think the first group was they played as characters from Back to the Future. There was a group from the movie Clue. The team that won it, they were Stargate SG-1 characters. But there was one group. This is actually the one party that I actually killed them very quickly, and the episode was over very quickly. They were dungeon OSHA inspectors. It was really funny. And Temer, who's constantly in our chat and who wrote the ApolloNik here, Temtem, who also gives Nova lots of Tritos on the stream, he was in that group. And he was he played a character named Flunky number 246 or something. It was very funny.
Oh.
But you're right, there's no OSHA inspectors.
Yeah, there is no OSHA in Dungeon Crawler World. Get out of here.
Yep. Carl offers a bunch of other stuff.
It's like the Underdark, right? It's like the Underdark in in Minecraft, where it's there are no friends.
There's no friends.
The Underdark.
There's people that you can get along with, but that's as good as it gets. Yep. Carl offers a bunch of other stuff that gets rejected before offering the meth that they got from the Bad Llama. They snatch it and taste it. They claim, "It's dungeon made. Where'd you get this? Is there more?" I don't know why dungeon made meth is so much better. Maybe it's more purity. I don't know. They say, "I'll tell you where to get it for the machine, for the murder dozer. One that won't blow up on us with fuel." One of Rory or Lorelai responds, "I don't know." "Do it," says Donut. "Deal," they respond.
Right?
So it does. They're getting what they want very quickly.
Yeah.
37 charisma is a huge social lubricant, apparently. Lorelai immediately turns around and casts a spell on a goblin engineer who shrieks. She's using that anguish magic like a taskmaster. And then Donut asks Rory if she wants to come with, and we get some like personal characterization of Rory. I cannot leave my chieftain, even if I wanted to. And we also couldn't even descend the floor. We NPCs dissolve when we try and leave a floor. I've seen it. We get about halfway and then we just disappear. There's some other stuff brought up there, but that was kind of the highlights.
Also, I want to point out that when Donut asks, she's like, "Do you want to come with us?" It's like, okay, so we all up till this point, we've seen Donut behaving badly, like a bitchy little mean girl. But you know, we as the reader are aware this is definitely a role that she's playing. She's trying to be inflammatory. She wants to get on that goddamn television show. She's going to say the worst shit. She's going to be the worst person. She is the one on Real Housewives who throws the like champagne into her, you know, friend's face while they're at dinner or whatever. That's what she's doing. But there's also a side of Donut that is also really vulnerable. And she sees this woman, this goblin shamanka, who has led a very difficult life, even if it was something she chose. If it wasn't something she chose, it hadn't been easy for her. And Donut sees that. She sees that this person is being vulnerable with her, and she's like, "Do you want to come? Do you want to party with us? We can maybe keep you safe." Like I think this is the real Donut. This is the Donut inside that we don't get to see because she knows she has to play a part.
Yes and no. And I think if we had only read this, I would have agreed with you. But I know it comes up later.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hard disagree with you. I think Donut is more than anything, in the face of vulnerability, in the face of questionable questions about ethics and morality, she does not care. And we see it because the person she cares about most, Carl, will be vulnerable and in pain in front of her, and she will disregard it. So I cannot believe that she necessarily cares what this goblin wants or needs is a concern of hers.
I don't know. I kind of look at it like, you know how little kids are essentially monsters. Like, they're horrible. Children are horrible. Like, it's why Lord of the Flies is still taught in high schools to this day, every fucking year or whatever. But like, empathy is not a thing that they have inherently. It's something that is learned, right? And maybe this is her flexing empathy muscles, even if she just turns around and rips the wings off a butterfly immediately after. In that one moment, she's like, "Do you have a boo-boo?
I think Donut sees an opportunity and is using empathy as a tool to get it. Or see if she can get it. It would be very useful to have a goblin NPC on their side who could soak some damage or share knowledge about the dungeon.
That's true.
Just be another attacker to cause damage to enemies or soak up attacks.
I think it's both. I choose to believe that it's both.
Fair enough. We can discuss this more here in a little bit. Yes. Donut asks Rory what else she knows. She describes the other intelligent monsters on this floor, and the further down the dungeon they go, the more intelligent the monsters will be. She shares that when the floor collapses, NPCs are put in stasis until the next dungeon opens, and then appear the same when they wake, and they just go about their next day, whenever that is. I noted that this is interesting, that they will be goblins in future dungeons and not transform to whatever mythological creature or monster will fit that dungeon or those creatures. Maybe the Bored Corporation only goes to human worlds and goblins are an inherent part of human culture. I don't know, but this was
potato.
Yeah, it's kind of it broke the immersion for me a little bit. But one day we'll wake up deeper and they will tell us, kill the crawlers, get better at killing. And eventually we will be so deep the crawlers will never come and we will have peace. We will have peace and a place to live and breed and have our little ones run free and not worry about killing for survival.
Yeah.
Wow. This really struck me because it is another creature that just wants a peaceful life, but recognizes they are stuck and willing to fight to have it one day. Very interesting. Very humanizing of this goblin, right as they're making a deal. Wow, things are going really well with these goblins. I'm so glad to see it's going that way.
Yeah, they're best friends now.
Oh yeah, they're like the bestest of friends. They, they would
never
come with
betray
us.
each other.
Come with us.
Yeah, they would never betray each other.
Yeah. So we start moving into some much quicker chapters. The pace picks up. They have created a goblin copper chopper. The description reads, take a junkyard bicycle, add a reliable steam engine, remove all the bolts holding it together and replace them with chewing gum, and you get the idea. The preferred assault transport of goblin bombards. What this contraption lacks in reliability and safety, it makes up for in absolutely nothing. Oh boy. So an unreliable vehicle, but it is a chopper with a sidecar. And I brought up my World of Warcraft player comment earlier. This is the mount you get in the second expansion. It's the first expansion to allow for someone to ride with you. It is expensive as fuck. And they get it as their first mount.
By trading what?
Some meth.
Yep.
And information about where there is more meth.
Starting a turf war. Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Carl starts asking some questions, gets the rundown from a proud engineer who claims that it will outlast him right before the handlebars fall off. Carl gets pointed out that, like a murder dozer, it can get too hot or build up too much pressure and in either case explode, but there are valves for addressing each problem. That one and that one, don't get them mixed up. Weird. That probably won't come up later.
It won't come up.
Nah. No, probably not. Donut demands modifications to her sidecar, and Carl manages to pick up the entire thing, even though it's really heavy. He manages to pick it up long enough that he can put it in his inventory.
Which, again, with as strong as Carl is,
yes,
Donut is stronger. She could do it too.
That is funny. I could see Donut doing this by like, I don't know how Donut would manage to pick this up, because like there are large things that I can pick up but that are so awkward that it's hard for me to hold. So I don't know how she would do that. But she's also a quadruped, so her interface for putting things in her inventory, I'm not as certain about how that works.
Yeah, it's different for her. But in my mind, it would be something like, I don't know, a kitten on her back, like playing with a ball of yarn with all four of her paws in the air. Something like that. Yeah.
Carl then is told to use coal for fuel for it, and it has a hopper to just load it in. He's pointed at a large stack of it and grabs three sets of 999 coal lumps. This is interesting that he grabs all that coal lumps because it ends up not mattering. So I wonder why Matt Dinniman planted that little detail. Maybe it's because like they needed to think about fuel and kind of plant that seed first. But then Rory and Lorelai, who have been absent for a little while, come back super high. Lorelai propositions Carl and tries to pick him up in the sexual sense, to which Donut responds, do you want to read this?
Oh, I don't have it up, and I don't have it put up in front of me. Wait, hang on 1 second.
I got it.
Okay.
Oh, sweetie, said Donut. As amusing as I would find it to watch Carl here disappoint yet another woman, we're on a schedule. Banging monster girls is not on the narrative we're going for with this story. Maybe next time. Sure, but look me up later, okay? The goblin said. She reached up and booped me on the nose. It'd be nice to fuck someone and not have to eat them afterward. Oh, good. Finally an offer of sex without violence.
There you go. It was bound to happen eventually.
But it was an offer for sex with reference to sex with violence. So, baby steps. She then, Lorelai then immediately starts to leave and orders a bombard to bathe and meet her in her chambers after dark.
Yep. Take a bath.
Sloppy,
yeah, exactly.
sloppy, almost seconds. Carl then, as part of the deal, I didn't bring this up earlier, but then Carl receives a bag filled with bombs, grenades, and dynamite, which he goes, this goblin explosive shit's really unstable. I will put that in my inventory where it will immediately become stable very quickly. Rory then asks Donut to fulfill her end of the bargain. Donut shares that the goblin drugs came from the llamas, to which Rory immediately screams, I knew it. She turns to another bombard. Gear up. They've been holding out on us. We're rolling on them in 5.
Yep.
And then insert montage sequence of goblins putting on armor, grabbing weapons, grabbing explosives, jumping on vehicles, filling them up with coal, and they ride on out of here. Carl
abandoning.
Carl turns to Donut and asks, did this just happen? Did we really just start a meth war between the goblins and the llamas? To which Donut responds, do you want that one?
Oh, sure. Yes, we did. Just like I planned. It went pretty well, don't you think? She indicated the door at the far side of the room. So, you want to go in there and kill the chieftain? I could really use another boss box.
Oh my god.
Okay.
My mind immediately goes to the bag of explosives that Carl was just handed. And I cannot understate this entire room has completely cleared out. There are no more goblins here. It probably would have been more effective if they had looked at the map and seen that all of the white dots are moving. There are no dots on the mini map near them.
They are alone.
Carl notes all the wires, cogs, dynamite, gunpowder, and other things around them, and he says, we need to loot everything. Donut responds, and then kill the chieftain, right? Carl's mind immediately goes back to having to pummel the scared woman to death. The hoarder thinks about how much stronger the goblins are than the scatters that were kind of the mobs surrounding that boss, and thinks about the ethics of betraying the goblins that just helped them. And then Carl responds, and I'm gonna play another audio clip. I have this one and one more. When I read this before I listened to it, and in my head Carl was resigned, but the audio here of Jeff Hayes as Carl sounds more like he's unconvinced. So let's talk about kind of
sure.
When you hear the tone, you can't unhear it. And now you have characterization of where the character is coming from emotionally.
Nope.
Hang on. I need to fix this. It's
Uh-oh.
apparently this one's broken. Why is sound couldn't be played? Please try again later.
No.
Let me redo this one.
Okay.
I can do it very quickly.
I'm gonna hum some background noise. Just
Okay, let me see if I can reassign it.
I don't know why, but the theme song for Jurassic Park is all I want to hum right now, but I don't know if that's proprietary and if it'll get this taken down. Probably not.
Yeah, then we kill the chieftain, I said. Donut hopped up and down, her tail swishing.
This is going to make exquisite television.
So that was a very short one. But the like, yeah, and then we kill the chieftain.
I hear it as like reluctant agreement.
Yeah, reluctant. So reluctant to me is very different than resigned. Like,
right. Yeah.
He
like,
reluctant is like, I still don't want to do this. Resigned is, I know I have to.
Right. I don't know. Like I hear it more as, and this is one of those things like where in the paragraph immediately preceding this, he's like, well, here's a list of all the reasons why it would be so fucking stupid to go and do this thing, and we shouldn't do this thing. And then he's like, yeah, then we'll kill the chieftain. Like, it's just, he's like, yep, you're right. We're definitely going to do that thing.
So he's going into this still concerned about all of those reasons that he just listed. And of course, Donut is not worried about any of that. Her only concern is making exquisite television.
Exactly. Yeah. She wants on that show, Nick.
Yes.
She's going to get on that show.
They'll, no matter the cost.
Exactly.
Chapter 17 is really quick, especially my notes here on it. They note there's tons of coal, tools, engineering supplies, explosives, 5 gallons or 5 gallons of alchemical liquids, furniture, and more. They loot everything, including something called hobgoblin pus, of which there is only a small amount in the room, but it has a tooltip that indicates that it will cause a huge explosion.
It's like C4. It's like C4 in the dungeon.
Exactly. I have the sense that it was valuable, probably the real prize of this room. I was going to use it all. And then next to the pus was a set of magical triggers. Basically, there's like a detonator with like a strip of material that you can break in and place in various places and hit the detonator, and it'll ignite all of those. They have 3 of them. They use one to test it to make sure it works the way they imagine. So they only have 2, and they're going to use one right now. So leaving this encounter, they're going to have only 1 left. They load up 4 barrels with gunpowder, although they're like roughly half full because of their ability to lift it. And then they add metal shrapnel into it, but they lift it onto a cart and load it with the gunpowder, shrapnel, and some of the gel, the hobgoblin pus, and the detonator in the pus. And each of the barrels has a bit of the hobgoblin pus and trigger. And then there's a really interesting line, like in response to Donut is doing her own thing. Carl's basically just saying this to himself. Will they be mad? Probably. But Rory doesn't seem to like this boss guy too much. So who knows? I hope we never find out. Donut immediately says, do you think this is enough? Looking at the barrels, she's not engaging with whatever this is going on with Carl. It sounds like he's trying to rationalize or humanize the goblins in a way that justifies this. I can't tell if he's trying to dehumanize the goblins or humanize Rory to make it okay that he's killing someone that Rory doesn't like. It is unconvincing.
He's trying to convince himself also, because he's like, they said the chieftain would kill them, and and that he's horrible. We're doing them a favor. It's like whenever you're like, when you're trying to talk yourself, it's like that. Oh God, what's that meme? Or like, what's the reel where the girl's like, girl, don't do it, and she's like, I'm not gonna do it, and then she's like, I did it. It's exactly like
I do not recall that one, but
what? Have you guys seen that? It's like an overused audio clip that
uncultured
many
swine.
I know. I'm just I like to doom scroll on Insta. So like, but no, it's like that where he's like, yeah, no, I'm doing him a favor. He's a horrible guy, probably.
Yeah,
you're trying to convince yourself. Yeah.
So they go over the plan, they practice it. They've gotten in a really good habit of coming up with plans and rehearsing them or practicing them and getting on the same page about things. Unlike before when Donut interjected when Carl was trying to talk to the goblins. The plan is to have Donut open the door, push the cart in, close the door, run like hell, not just like run into the next room, but keep running. Hit the detonate button, which they practice this distance and they figure out the exact spot they want to stop and detonate. Then the plan is to look at their system notifications, and particularly like the big indicator for them is going to be to look at their own name tags, because if they kill a boss, they get a star next to their name. So like they're just looking for the star. They don't care about all the other notifications. If they kill it, great. If they don't kill it, they run like hell and leave. They don't
running. Absolutely.
They don't take advantage of whatever damage they've done to the boss or try and check. They know that there are so many goblins that if they get
and they're gonna come
caught,
back.
They will probably die. So like the plan is like yes or no, we kill it. So my last audio clip comes right after that, right as they're enacting the plan.
It's my favorite.
Did you see him? Was there a giant goblin?
Sorry. So they begin to enact the plan. They open, and Carl can't see any of this because he's just behind the cart. So it happens. He pushes the cart. The door opens. Donut calls for him to push it in. He pushes it in. They run like hell. They get to the spot, and this is where we pick up.
Did you see him? Was there a giant goblin in there?
It's a huge, ugly goblin. My word, I do not like running. He was sitting down reading a book. Blow it good.
I jammed the button.
There were a lot of babies in there, too.
Donut said in that last moment before the blast.
That last phrase, in that last moment before the blast, is so well read.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I gasped. You know, it was like I got to that line and I was like, oh, no.
So I have a lot of thoughts on this last little moment. Hey, Matt Dinniman really, really loves a cliffhanger at the end of a chapter, or just flat out revealing an unwelcome truth at the end of a chapter and then just end it, like leaving that to sit there. As I read this, I also don't know if Donut is just like teasing him. And just like, oh yeah, there's lots of babies in there. Like, who gives a shit? So, but there is the detail here about, the huge ugly goblin as she's like out of breath. I don't like running. Yeah, he was just reading a book. Blow him up. It's such an innocuous detail that I don't know why she would add that.
Oh yeah, he was reading a book?
Yeah, I don't know why she'd add that. I could see him just teasing him with like, oh yeah, there were lots of babies we just blew up, or that we are blowing up. That, I don't know. It just was like, I'm really nervous right now. Because
he's reading a book to the baby.
Yeah, he's reading a book.
Story.
Oh, reading oh man, now that picture is even worse.
Exactly.
But as I'm reading this, I'm so worried for Carl's psyche. He's already barely coping with the like destruction of the earth, the death of people, and what he had to do to the hoarder. That killing a bunch of babies. Are we really going here with Carl?
100% yes.
The answer is yes, 100%. Next sentence. God damn it, Donut. I said we'd both been knocked over, but unhurt by the shockwave. Blah, blah, blah. We were, there's more blasts. Okay, so there's like, here's what happens to us physically. And then he asks, were there really babies in there? Like goblin babies? I asked. Oh, yes, there were a bunch of them. I only saw them but for a moment. But they were quite cute. Some of them were wearing little oversized jackets like Baby Yoda. Adorable. I think you hit one with the cart. Oh my God, Donut. There were old ones and pregnant ones too. Did you see your level? We're both level 8 now. You're welcome.
Yep. Yes. Yes.
Fuck.
Dude. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes. It's great. It's so great.
Yeah, they get
horrifying. Absolutely horrifying.
They get knocked over. They get immediate confirmation of killing the boss. They see their stars. They get a bunch of achievements and notifications. But unlike the last time, there's no fanfare. There's no freezing them to introduce the boss. There's no announcement that they killed the boss. There's none of that pageantry. But they get the star. It must be a factor of like being in the room with the boss and when it actually appears.
Yeah, because it's the same layout as the Hoarder's Nest. So he's like got a good idea that if they go through that door, he's going to get locked in there.
Yeah. And that's part of this plan. They accounted for like that whole mechanic and they're avoiding it, which is smart. They just got a whole level out of this and a bunch of achievements and loot. They can go get the map of this neighborhood. There's a lot of benefits to doing this, but they were not prepared for this. Carl immediately asks for the confirmation of the baby murder. He gets it. He thinks to himself that he was fine killing goblins and other monsters, but that it was fucked up to kill babies. He says, I wasn't sure. That was pretty fucked up, and I wasn't sure how I felt about it. I immediately, upon reading the sentence, go, yes, you do, Carl. You know how you feel about this. His next sentence is, actually, I knew exactly how I felt about it. He then says, it made me feel like an asshole. I didn't like feeling like an asshole. And my next thought was to put my hands or my face in my hands and say, Carl, you sweet repressed summer child, you don't actually know how you feel about it. You feel like an asshole? That's it? No, Carl. Given how you're reacting to all this shit, that is not all you're feeling about this. Oh, man.
Well, and I have thoughts about this, but we can circle back to it.
I mean, we're almost done with the chapter. Is this something for a future episode to talk about?
No, this is something for right now because, okay, regardless of how he feels at this moment, the dungeon set him up. He was going to kill those babies, whether he was in that room or not. It's better that he didn't see them, honestly. It's better that he learned about it after the fact and he's like, oh no, I can't believe that happened. I feel terrible. But like, it would have been so much worse if he went into that room, got locked in, killed the chieftain, and then maybe killed the babies. Like,
but the plan was to push the cart in, run away, and detonate. So if he had heard a baby cooing or crying, or had,
how are you going to kill the boss?
Or
how are you killing that boss?
You don't. That's the thing is their plan involved running away. They could have gotten away.
They could have gotten away.
If Donut had said it just a bit before he hit the detonator, he could have said, babies, no freaking way. Let's get out of here.
That's fair. She didn't really warn him, but they did want to get that kill and they did want that map and they did want that gear.
Sure.
But that's the thing though, is like that boss was in that room with those babies for a reason. It was set up that way for a reason.
If anything, Carl just didn't have full agency because he wasn't given all the information by Donut.
Sure.
So,
but at that point, let's say he does get. But let's say he did. Like, let's say that they didn't have this plan to go blow something up or whatever. All of that, the explosives are already in that room with them.
That's true. With all those sparks showering around, they could have all died at any moment.
Yeah.
That's true. That's fair. That's
He ran a
fair.
baby over with the cart. I'm just saying, it's like, and he wasn't the only one in there. There were older goblins, there were pregnant goblins, but that doesn't mean that they weren't going to like kill him and rip him apart, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's fair. That's fair. I think, you
These
know, they had
NPCs
tried a
were
social
generated
approach
to die.
they had tried the social approach to get what they want, which was a vehicle. They got it. They could have just left. They didn't have
Absolutely.
to. Yeah. And, you know, at the start of this, Carl said, "Oh, we will kill them only if we have to."
Yeah.
They didn't have to. They could have just walked away. Interesting.
But they didn't.
But, you know, also to your credit and to the line of argument you're having here, Carl doesn't linger on this in this moment or freak the fuck out like he did the last time. Donut goes on to say, what? It's not like they didn't have it coming. You didn't ask to be here. They're goblins. What kind of vile monster sticks babies in the boss room anyway? Not a bad point, but it's still murder babies, and he had a choice.
Yep.
Carl, so to like what I was saying, Carl decides we need to get the map and leave. They're on their way. There's no way they didn't hear that explosion. We will head north. That is the only neighborhood in the 1 square mile that they have already kind of explored that they don't know what's in there. There is in the bottom left, there is the goblins, and then there were there was the hoarder and her scatters, and then there's the slimes that we started to see a little bit, but the northwest quadrant, we don't know what's in there. So we will head north. They go into the workshop again. Everything is absolutely destroyed, and there is a 15-foot wall of fire that has caught, I don't know on what, but they cannot get to the boss room. They can barely set foot in this room because it's so hot.
They can't get the map anyway.
Right. The steam machine, the steam engine, it has exploded. There were pipes feeding water into that are now flooding water into this room. Carl notes that all the smoke in this room is being sucked up through a ventilation system. That's not going to come up later. I'm sure. But they cannot get to the boss room. They cannot loot the map. They cannot check the boss or any other enemies, or not enemies, goblins, I should say, in there for any loot, which is not optimal when you're looking at the situation through that lens.
It didn't go as they had planned, or as they had assumed. No,
Yeah.
that is fair.
Carl is relieved. At this point, he does not want to go see the bodies in the boss room.
No.
He sees on his map, though, that the rest of the goblins are on their way back. He notes very soon these white dots will become red again. And he, like, looking at the map, plots out a path to the next quadrant. He calls it, not neighborhood, that they haven't explored. He hopes that there are mobs that they cannot handle. He hopes there aren't mobs that they cannot handle, like the slimes, and hopes that there's a rest area. As they're running, Donut compliments Carl, saying, "I must admit, I do like it when you blow stuff up. I like it a lot." This is, I think, supposed to be a sweet moment where Donut is trying to bond with Carl. I think she's trying to manipulate him into not feeling as sorry as he's feeling.
I don't think it's a manipulation. I think it's a callback to that earlier moment when she talks about how she used to like sitting on his lap while he was playing Call of Duty and getting fragged over and over again. I think this is just something that she enjoys. I think that it's like, this is just like, I think it's just, it reminds her of like those times, like where it was just the two of them and she'd sit on his lap and like watch things get blown up on his computer screen, and now she's seeing it in real life. And I don't think it's a manipulation. I think she's just like, this is exciting.
Much like how we talked about Lorelai and how that could both be her being sweet, but also her being conniving, and how it could also be, and it is, knowing Donut highly likely to be both things, and probably at the same time, or as improbable as it is to hold those things in balance. Donut can, and that's interesting. I am choosing to read this as, I need Carl to not be so mopey. I need him performing. So I need him to not feel as bad about this. And I also like it.
Yeah, it could be both. When you put it that way, it could be both. It could be like, this is really benefiting us, you blowing things up. This is very exciting. I like it a lot. But it could also be like, we're having fun together. This is an adventure.
Yeah. I'm just saying, given her 20 something intelligence, or no, 11 intelligence, her intelligence went up. Oh, it's 16 or more now, probably 18.
Yeah,
with an intelligence that high, she's probably taking all of these things into account and just going, checks lots of boxes. Great.
I will concede that we will never know, and I will say that it is a possibility.
I think it is interesting to continue to try and read Donut's, what she says and her behavior through different lenses, and to continue to debate that. I think it's interesting to do that, and continue to test this character and see it through both lenses. So let's keep doing that. But yeah,
I love Donut. I just love Donut.
She's really great. She's a really fun character. Yeah. So yeah, they gained a level. They didn't quite get a neighborhood map, but they got a ton of potentially useful stuff. Tons of engineering stuff, tools, alchemical stuff.
Things to make things blow up.
And most importantly, they got their chopper.
Yeah.
At least I think that's most importantly.
No, it is. Yeah.
They can travel quickly, avoid lots of threats. They can come, and I think they can just cover a lot of ground, especially given, at least on this floor, the format of these long, wide hallways. And given that those long, wide hallways divide up these mile-long spaces, and they can see, half a mile in any direction, for a total circumference of 1 mile. Or maybe that's not how it works. Maybe the map just moves to the next entire section of the 1 mile grid, even if they're in the bottom left corner of it. I don't know if it's been made clear, but they can cover a lot of ground, and they can make sure that they find the staircase, at least on this floor. I don't know if that grid-like system is going to continue every floor, but as long as they have this chopper and the massive... I mean, Carl already had the 3 stacks of 999 coal before they looted. I think it said he gained 10 tabs worth of loot.
So put all that new stuff. He's got tables in his inventory now. He's got explosives in his inventory now. So he can just sit here driving and just drop a piece of coal, drop a piece of coal, drop a piece of coal. Oh, we also learned, and this, I actually didn't bring this up, the way to turn on the chopper is by just putting fuel in the hopper. And then to turn it run out on its own.
And to turn it off, you just let the engine run out of fuel.
Perfect. A perfect system. That's the best kind of engine. What more could you want?
Yeah. So good set of chapters. Great characterization. Open-ended characterization in some instances, especially I feel as it relates to Donut. We're seeing Carl struggling more and more, but also not struggling so much that he's becoming kind of whiny. Which is good. I don't know how I would feel about that. He's still, whiny. He's not being crippled by his demons right now, which is good.
Fair.
And we're still learning a lot about the dungeon and how different mechanics work. Some of those mechanics are changing as things are being patched.
Overall, how are you feeling?
I'm
about
feeling
the
great.
story?
I'm
Yeah.
continuing to be excited because there's more and more to crunch on in terms of the dungeon. Like, we're learning how things are divided up geographically in the dungeon. We're learning even more about the relationships between different groups of NPCs. They are now neatly, we can tell, divided up by neighborhoods. And maybe they'll, goblins in other areas cover more than just a neighborhood, but they have
They also have their own
aggressive
beat.
they have an aggressive relationship with other NPCs.
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
NPCs are manipulatable, at least for the foreseeable future, and as long as they're not hostile, although a lot of them are going to be hostile, so as not to be exploited by supermassive charisma. They have
Can't
more
wait.
items. I, having peeked ahead, know that there's going to be more loot and achievements here coming very shortly.
How far ahead are you?
I only read like the next 2 paragraphs.
Oh, snap. Okay.
So I'm looking at the where we open up with 2 achievements, which I read them both in the next chapter. Speaking of next chapters, next time we will be doing 3 chapters 19, 20, and 21. Part of the reason I'm doing that is because of the runtime of the chapters and how much audio there is to listen to. It's so far been between 44 minutes and 62 minutes. So like on average 50 minutes seems a pretty good length. Even though we just did 5 chapters, because the last 3 were so short, this was only 51 minutes. So the next set is going to be 3 chapters for 53 minutes, and then we'll have chapters 22 through 24, which is 49 minutes, and then 25 through 27, which is 60 minutes. But this also works really well because there is the book is divided into a part 1 and a part 2. And this will neatly break the remaining chapters up before we hit part 2. So that is where we will be, and we'll be back again in 2 weeks. Yeah. Any final thoughts before we go on these chapters or anything else?
No, I think, and I'm so glad that you're finally getting into these books. And it's so silly. The thing I'm like most excited about is like this is still just the tippy tip top beginning. Like, you haven't seen anything yet. And it gets so much better.
Boy.
And bigger and scarier and crazier and funnier. And it's just freaking amazing. Like, I don't know, like these books, it's like, did you ever watch Rocky, like when you were a kid, and like as soon as you were done watching it, like you wanted to go do a bunch of fucking like push-ups and like beat up like a neighborhood bully or something?
Yeah.
Like, that's what these books make me feel like. They're so macho, but like I want to, like, I don't know. Like they get me pumped, man. Like they're such good books. And Jeff Hayes is so
it's really good.
Talented.
I really want to do a season or maybe even a recurring show, and maybe it's just because of my excitement of Dungeon Crawler Carl. I want to do a tabletop, at least one season that is based on Dungeon Crawler Carl, where
there's actually on the Discord, they have some like homespun stuff that people like. Yeah. So we could chat after that, and I'll send you an invite to the.
There's a really interesting role-playing system that I think could fit really well into it called Dot Dungeon. A book about traveling through a virtual fantasy world. One person takes on the role of the world, filling in the nooks and crannies with dungeons and adventures that they think up or borrow for books they already own. Everyone else is a player and creates a character to explore those nooks, discover the treasure, and interact with the NPCs and other blah, 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 blah. The thing that sets Dot Dungeon apart from the other books is the inspiration it takes from social games like Werewolf and Munchkin. The real world can and will affect the game you create. Each class has different powers based on physical things you do or different parts of your life. The witch uses their tattoos to cast spells, while the wizard uses their favorite book. But it's set in a, like, it's as if you are playing characters in a video game, or you have
That sounds so fun.
like entered into a virtual world, and like your character knows that it is not the real world. Anyway, so I haven't really looked through all the rules of that, but I don't know. I get really excited.
That sounds amazing. I would love to do that. And I'm trying to think like what character I would even want to play. Because like, are you thinking like if you want to base it on like Dungeon Crawler Carl, do you want to, is it like, you know, like you get to play as Carl and somebody else gets to play as Donut, or like,
I mean, what excites me about this concept is like people could just play themselves as if they were like
in the world as if they were a crawler.
As if they were going through this.
So it would be like Dungeon Crawler Shannon, and then she dies like 6 seconds into the first episode.
Yeah, kind of.
Like yeah, absolutely.
Kinda.
I would die immediately. Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
we will see everyone next time. Thank you so much for watching. If you were watching live and have any feedback on how the audio clip thing went, or are watching the YouTube videos, leave a comment on how you felt those went. I would really appreciate that feedback. I will do my best to continue to add clips. I did a lot this time because I wanted to hear a lot of the voices and be able to talk about Jeff Hayes' voice, since we haven't so far, and we kind of needed to kind of catch up on that reaction and critique. But we'll definitely keep some going of our favorite moments here. So Shannon, also, if there's anything you want me to include, definitely hit me up and I will make sure that that gets added as a clip.
The only thing I can think right now that I desperately want you to play as a clip is the smush. The smush clip from when he gets that skill. And it's the guy, it sounds like someone who's like touching themselves.
Oh boy. I'm
best.
making a note right now.
Dude, you have to. It's just because it's the first time you hear it. Like, I mean, it happens several other times throughout the series, but like this is the first time that you hear it and you're like, what the fuck? What am I listening to?
Oh boy.
What is this? It's amazing.
So good. All right. Thank you. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Yeah, Bye.